Hey everybody, welcome back to another live this Sunday. I appreciate everybody who joins in every Sunday to have a conversation around real estate over here on the channel. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to hit the like button, or if you're watching this video on the replay, hit the hype button, which is a shooting star below the video. Sometimes it pops up, sometimes it doesn't. It's YouTube's new thing to help get us through the algorithm so people can have more conversations in regard to real estate. So I appreciate everybody jumping on tonight, this Sunday. If you have let me know, I'm gonna check real quick just to make sure you guys can hear me. Like I always like to do. And then I see your question as well, Alex. I appreciate you being here. I'm gonna see if I can give you any insight if possible. But I'm pretty sure you probably already know a lot of it already. But I'm gonna see if I can give you some insight. Let me just make sure people can hear me. I'm pretty sure you probably already. All right, perfect. So again, and then we'll jump into the whole thing as far as the housing market changing and the short sales popping up, and we'll go a little bit into also homeowners becoming accidental landlords, or I call them mishap landlords. But so let's see. You said wonder about old buried fuel oil tanks in 1960 houses in Smyrna and locating them. Yeah, that's the thing. Again, as you know, if some of these houses, if they have those what do they call them, like the UST, those underground type of still fuel oil tanks. You would have to, I would say the best thing to possibly do would do like a soil contamination test in regards to seeing the pipe and everything where you said, oh, I would guess in backyard near off driveway. Yes, I would also maybe look under if it's a crawl space at the house, near the house, maybe where the basement is at, or about like 10 to 20 feet away from the home, I would say. That pipe kind of expand or kind of spans per se. So I would say the biggest thing in regards to if any of the pipe was like cut off or was hidden, and if there's possible any like oil leakage in the grass or in the soil, some type of contamination, you can advise to get like a soil contamination test done if you wanted to. And also, of course, try to find, trying to think who would be a great person to kind of talk to in regards to finding a tank. Most of those tanks, of course, since they're so old, they might be cracked. They might have some type of leakage. Of course, it would be metal. It's supposed to last a little longer with the metal frame, but you could get possibly, of course, rust over time, right? So I would definitely like check the past like fuel oil before like buying a house, and if the house had that furnace system, because I know in the house that I grew up in Pennsylvania, that house was Jesus, it was built in the 50s. Well, yeah, 50s, yeah. And even though we're in Georgia now, but in Pennsylvania, my grandma and my grandpa, their house had the fuels. We would always have to bring like the oil tanks to the house, and they would fill up the furnace with the oil. They would bring it down to the basement, fill up the oil and everything in order to heat the house. And we had like those radiators that went around the baseboard of the house. And yeah, so of course, houses, like you said, built around that era, most of them have those type of tanks inside the yard somewhere, preferably near the basement, near a crawl space, if not 10 to 20 feet, where it might span out into the backyard, as you mentioned, or near the driveway. I know in Jersey, a lot of them are near or at the driveway. Like recently, my sister, I guess I'll give you a little backstory, and I know you probably know this already, Alex, but my sister who lives in Jersey, her and her husband just sold a house, and they actually had the oil system, fuel tank in their driveway. So similar to what you said, possibly off the driveway, in the driveway. They had it right where the driveway met the sidewalk, and the buyer who was buying it, they did in Jersey, I believe you have to have them. I got to ask my little sister, but you have to have them checked, I believe. So the buyer and the realtor did have theirs checked, and my sister and her husband, they didn't want to remove it per se out of the ground. So what they did is they gave them some concessions towards it, but also it just depends on your financing as well. Because I think my sister said it was going to cost them about $30,000 to remove it or something, some astronomical number. Of course, because you not only are removing that still fuel tank system per se, but you're also trying to make sure, as you said, the metal piping is not, where is it going to cut it off? Make sure the oil is not leaking into the soil for contamination, different things like that. And that's one of the biggest things as far as why that happened with my sister's house in Jersey, that they wanted to make sure there was no contamination in the soil around the house. So instead, what they did is they just gave concessions. But again, it just depends on you. Have to talk more to your lender about financing. I know in your situation, you had told me a little earlier that you guys were taking a different approach. But I know that in that situation, she had they had to talk about certain things, because I think that person might have been going, I don't know if they had conventional or not, but so they had to talk about. He said, Georgia usually behind the times, ignorance is yeah, Georgia is behind the times. Unfortunately, they are behind the times. As you kind of go south, a lot of the southern states are just a little behind the times outside of the northern states. And as most people know, I'm originally from the northern states. I live in Georgia now. However, yeah, so a lot of my family, we own real estate. And with that being the situation, we encounter things, and in different states, you encounter things as well. Even though most homes were built similar, with similar things throughout the years or the decades per se. But in Georgia, we are a little slower. We are a little slower, unfortunately. We are behind the times sometimes, as you mentioned. Ignorance blaze it. Yes, Bomada. So yeah, so hopefully that helps. So I would say the biggest thing would be to, of course, inspect it, make sure the oil tanks have been taken out of the ground. Most of them aren't. I also would say get that contamination done to the soil if that's something that is a worry as well. And just see what's going on with that tank and if they can identify it. I know the last buyer that I helped, because also, as you might know as well, Alex, that in Georgia we have a lot of septic tanks. And with that being the case, depending on where you're at, if you're in more of a rural area or more of a, like, if you're kind of going either east or west, depending on what counties you're in, as you keep making your way further east, west, north, or south, outside of that, the Atlanta city area, you'll get more houses that have septic tanks. And a buyer that I was just working with, we had to, we made sure to do a septic tank inspection. So I told him, I know a lot of people don't want to do these different inspections because they do cost, right? They are costly. So a lot of people don't want to do inspections because they will add up. And especially if you're financing it, if you don't have enough money saved to do said inspections, and you find something that might scare you, or if the seller is not willing to do or amend anything in regards to these things that you find, some of these buyers unfortunately don't have the cost to keep moving on to the next house to do more inspections and more things. So sometimes, even though I might present them and say, hey, you might want to get this inspection done, this inspection done, this inspection done, most of them don't have the money to do so, right? Because even in Georgia, our state is not, you don't have to have a survey done. Some states you have to have a survey done, legally. And in Georgia, you sit at the closing table, the closing attorney will read you the documents and they'll say, did you do a survey? And then the person will say, oh, I didn't do one. And they say, well, just to let you know, if you do a survey later on, we're not held liable, right? So again, Georgia is a buyer beware state. So as much as you can figure out, it's great to do so, right? Again, most people do not have the funds to do so. So most people kind of bypass these steps. But so we had a septic tank inspection done on a house. Another buyer I was helping, we did a SOAR scan, just because the house that they was buying, there was a big tree in front of the yard, right? And if most people don't understand that sometimes when you have bigger trees, the roots are trying to find some type of source of water. And if it's a big tree and you have public sewage or any type of like piping, the water connected, to public lines, that roots might find its way over to that pipe, bust through that pipe just to find some water. So it's just different smaller things as you keep going on, as you keep purchasing houses and you keep learning more about real estate, other issues. And even in Georgia, hey, what's going on, Dad? And even in Georgia, they have, as most people know, Stone Mountain, which is a mountain located in Stone Mountain, Georgia, outside the metro Atlanta area, is one of the largest exposed granite rocks in the city of the metro Atlanta area per se in Georgia. And most people probably don't know this, but Atlanta is called like the city of trees because it's really in almost like a valley type of plateau area. And so we're surrounded by so many mountains because the Appalachian Mountains go into or through, you could say, kind of into and bypasses the state of Georgia. And so with that being the situation, you have certain areas that people think is just all flat land, but a lot of it is rolling hills and plains and plateaus. And with that being the case, the Metro Atlanta area, some spots of it has with Stone Mountain having this exposed granite rock, it has a lot of granite rock gives off a lot of radon gas. And as people build and you tap into that rock, the rock splits, the radon gas comes up from the earth, and then you get radon right inside of your house. So it's just small things. So I tell some buyers, if you want to, it's great to get radon tests done to see where the levels are at. You should always try to get a radon mitigation or some type of machine in your house. I know most of these newer construction houses, according to what they say, they have these type of radon mitigation systems somewhere in the house. But it's to each his own, right? I can only tell people things. And of course, as you keep going on, as you keep experiencing things, you learn more and more things, right? And people always give me great, advice and also make me think even more. So I appreciate working with everybody, right? Ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. Yes, sometimes it's okay, to take it, to really go and try your best. Do as much as you can do in the beginning, even if it's, like you said, just an ounce of that prevention to hopefully stop you from anything longer down the line, right? I always tell people, even with new systems and all those things, yes, new things can break as well, right? However, if we can find the things and try to prevent them before they go forward, it's the best measures to try to cure something, right? Hey, Ms. H, how you doing? I appreciate everyone joining, so we'll get into it. Thank you, Alex, for all the great questions. If you guys don't know, Alex was just asking questions around fuel tanks that could possibly be underground with the 1960 homes. So if that's anything that's in your area, and if you want to give some advice as well inside the chat, please do so. We love advice from other people. So before we get into this housing market and the short sales, as usual, as you guys know, I am not a lender. However, I love to talk about the mortgage rates, where we're at, what's going on mortgage-wise and financing. And the reason why I do this a lot is because if you guys don't know, one of my sister's dad is still a mortgage, and he's been in mortgage for dang near 50 years now. And so having conversations and being able to talk to him about financing, it just makes me more aware of the financing part. I am not a lender, though. I am a realtor that just knows a little bit more knowledge around different things. So needless to say, right here we have, as you guys know, there's conflict in the Middle East, and because of that, our interest rates have spiked up. We have our 30-year fix now for conventional ended on Friday at 6.64, conventional 15-year 6.5, jumbo 6.65. We have our ARM at 6.31, FHA at 6.10, and our VA at 6.12. Again, these are average mortgage rates, so that does not mean that your rate will be here. It could be lesser, it could be higher, it could be here. These are average national mortgage rates according to Mortgage News Daily. Okay, and so we're going to jump off of this, and we're going to move over real quick to the 10-year treasury. So if you guys don't know, our mortgage rates tend to, well, most of the time they are going hand in hand with this 10-year treasury. As you see, our treasury has gone up. Again, right here, it's saying that it declined about 0.012. However, last time we were on this live last Sunday, the treasury was at 4.3. It's at 4.4. As you guys know, rates trended up, so that goes up. If you, I know most people are, and the media continues to pump out that we need more in regard to Feds to drop interest rates. However, the interest rate is on the short term with the Feds. It's more about inflation, more about job reports, different things like that. So again, I'm not a financier. I am not a lender. This is just some great information to know. So you want to look at where that 10-year treasury is at and how it's trending. All righty. Now, I don't want to keep y'all. I don't want to bore you to death with financing. Hey, what's going on, Croy Clark? How are you? I'm sorry I'm late. So much going on here in Florida. Didn't get to Georgia, but it's okay. Going to be living in Florida for a long time. No problem. I appreciate you jumping on, whether you're, here one Sunday, or if you're late or whatever, I understand everybody has lives, so no fault to your own. There's some Sundays I don't join as well on our lives because life happens, right? But I appreciate you being here. I'm doing okay. Hopefully you're doing all right. And hopefully all the craziness in Florida is not affecting you too much. But that housing market, I'm not in Florida, but I've heard some things as far as that west part of Florida. The housing market kind of looking a little crazy down there. So, but hopefully you'll make it to Georgia sooner than later. But it's great that you'll hopefully be enjoying the weather in Florida. It's just, I like Florida. The only thing about Florida is it's just too humid for me. Once I step off the plane, my back is sweating, and I'm like, oh, I don't like my back sweating. I don't like sweating. So, and I sweat so easily. Hey, what's going on, David? Thanks for joining. Appreciate you being here. All right, so let's talk about real quick. I'm going to, before we get into short sales, we're going to talk about this article in regards to people becoming accidental landlords. I don't know if this is happening right now where you guys live at. If you know anybody who probably bought recently within the last couple of years, they're saying the number of accidental landlords rises to 3-year high. Unsold listings make up a growing share of the rental market, the second largest on record, and trending up. So they're saying that more people are becoming landlords because they cannot sell their properties in this particular market. And I've actually talked about this on another live that we all came in discussion with in regards to homes in the Metro Atlanta area. Again, every market is different, so it depends on what market you're in. Real estate is very local to your market, and it's even very local. Even if you're in a similar state, it's still local to the area in which you're in as well. So, and I've seen some of this happening around the Metro Atlanta area in different pockets of the Metro Atlanta area. I've experienced this personally trying to work with a seller. About actually the first time I experienced this recently, well, not the first time, the recent time I experienced this as far as becoming an accidental landlord was a young lady that I had talked to on the phone that lived in Conyers, Georgia, which is east of Atlanta off of I-20. She was trying to relocate to Dallas, Texas, and she wanted to sell her house, and she couldn't sell it. So she ended up just taking the Zillow. She did a for rent by owner, and she found a way. I know we had discussions. She was talking about that she possibly, rent it with her to her child. But she ended up putting on Zillow, did it for rent by owner. I guess eventually she got it rented. I'm not sure. I do know that she relocated to Texas. And I did follow up with her in regards to if she had it rented or not. But I guess she did. I don't know. Corey said exactly. I need snow. If snow happens, baby, it's gonna be some craziness really happening if snow pops up right now. It says a near record and rising share of homeowners are turning their unsold properties into rental properties owned by these accidental landlords, account for more of the listed rental stock than at any time since 2022. And the trend may not have peaked yet. So they're saying that we could possibly see more people being stuck with their real estate as bargaining power tilts towards buyers and homes take longer to sell. Renting out a property is one way for homeowners to buy time rather than compete aggressively on price. So basically they're saying some of these homeowners, they do not want to drop their prices with their houses, so they rather taking them off the market, find a way to sustain the house through renting it to a third party, of course, which would be a tenant, instead of dropping the price because they might need a certain amount in order to get out the house. So what's happening, and this is just from the data that I see in the Metro Atlanta area from when I'm looking at the MLS system, and I'm going to show you guys what I do. Like literally every day I get on our MLS system. I think I need to get a life. I get on our MLS system and I just kind of browse different MLSs. So most people probably don't know, and I know a lot of the realtors in the Metro Atlanta area, they don't realize that we have access to several different MLSs. So we can get in not only Georgia MLS, some parts of the Florida MLS, some parts of Colorado, California, Seattle, Washington. I'm looking for property in Costa Rica right now, so I'm just being nosy. And because of this, I'm always browsing the MLS because we have so much accessibility to different MLSs and markets in Alabama, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Of course, I can't personally sell in those different states, but I can refer to those states. But I just jump on there to be nosy. And with that being said, I'm noticing that most of these accidental landlords are people that might have bought just a couple years ago, and they can't really drop the price but so low, because if they drop the price to a certain amount, then they're, of course, which we'll talk about later, they're short selling. And with that being the case, most people just say, hey, I'd rather just, if I can qualify for another mortgage, if I have, if I pay this house in cash, if I can't get rid of it, but I can qualify for another mortgage, or I could pay other cash here. People are just becoming accidental landlords, even though that might not be something they want to do. But there's so many different scenarios. But that's what I'm noticing around, like I said, Metro Atlanta area. David said accidental landlords was quite common during the Great Recession. Yes, it's nothing new under the sun, as you know, David. There's nothing new under the sun. Even when we talk about short sales, there's nothing new with short sales either. Short sales have always been here. Accidental landlords have always been here. Foreclosures have always been here, right? It's the natural cycle of housing. It's very cyclical, right? It has ebbs and flows. It has those ups and those downs, and it's always here. We might not see it as much during one time, but we might see it kind of exacerbated more at another time, right? So it's very much, it's just the trend of the housing cycle, right? And as we all know, from what happened with the COVID situation, our equity appreciated so quickly that we're kind of seeing more of these big things happen on a higher scale now, right? The same way the equity kind of exploded on this higher scale, now we're kind of seeing a turn on a higher scale, right? We're seeing a adjustment, a correction, things happening on like this higher level now, where people might be seeing some type of, maybe they bought a house 3 years ago for 500,000. Maybe they can only sell their house now for 400,000, right? We're seeing a turnover at a grander scale, because we saw so much of a high equity level. David says signs market is changing on a positive side that might help affordability. Yes, and it definitely could help affordability as well, as you said, David. So you never know. We got to take our ups and our downs, and we got to do it the best way we can. But it has to make sense to you, right? Whether you're buying, you're selling, it does have to make sense to you, to your bottom line, to what you're ultimately trying to do. So I just say, just make sure it makes sense to you. Despite home values holding flat over the last year nationwide, declining, roughly half of the 50 largest metro sellers are rarely forced to sell. Because homeowners who bought or refinanced when rates were at or below 3% have relatively inexpensive mortgage payments, renting out a home at a price high enough to cover those distinct possibility for many. It says, with buyers gaining negotiating power in today's market, sellers are unable to secure their preferred price, are increasing turning to the rental market. And yeah, that's another thing too, right? If you bought your home with smaller interest rates, if you maybe bought your home before the whole pandemic situation happened and you have a low mortgage, right? You can afford to rent your home out, right? You can afford to do this thing. If you bought it cash, you can afford to do it. So again, just depends on what's your current situation. The current high water mark for failed sales turned rentals was set in November 2022, when 2.4% of rental stock on Zillow was made up of homes that owners were unable to sell. Mortgage rates had more than doubled since the start of the year. That year, skyrocketing 3.11% to 7%. By the end of October, sellers were scrambling to adjust a shocking new market paradigm in which buyers' purchasing power had been nearly halved in mere months. Today's trend is choice-driven rather than shock-driven. So they're saying now people, it's a choice that people are making. It's not something that they have to do, even though, again, depends on what market you're in, because there are some markets where people have to do it. Some markets are shock driven. It just depends on where you live at. But there are people that are choosing to do it as well. So we have our two different sides, right? A coin has two different sides. The metric is highly seasonal, typically peaks in November, when would-be sellers commonly lose hope at the close of the home shopping season. Zillow's most recent data from October 2025 matches the past October high of 2.3% from 2022 and the past record high of 2.4% from November 2022 is well within reach. It says major metros with the highest share of accidental landlords tend to be places where there's less competition among home buyers. It says these places trend toward being more buyer-friendly on Zillow's market heat index. For sale listings generally linger longer and price cuts are more common. Of the top 10, 7 are in Texas or in Florida. So these are like breaking down the different metros with the highest share of accidental landlords. They have Denver, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Portland, Tampa, Miami, Dallas, Jacksonville, Nashville. And then they said metros with the lowest share of accidental: Providence, Rhode Island, Boston, New York, Hartford, Buffalo. So as you can see here, we have the Northeast states, Midwestern states, and then right here we have like the South states, the West states, all within like the Sun Belts, Tennessee, those different states. So again, the market is very two-sided. So let me know your thoughts in regards to that. Have you seen anything happening where you live at where people are becoming accidental landlords? Miss A said, I think that's good. You can see all that from other areas, Clark. It helps potential buyers in that area that may be looking. Yes, I can see a lot. And I'm pretty sure my family can testify this, my friends as well, and people that I help. I give a lot of information that I think most people don't probably even want to know. Like the last buyer I was helping out, right? The young lady unfortunately passed away, and the person who bought it was an investor. So, I like to just lay everything on the table and just create a number line, like a number calculations for me in my head. I can give you the information if you want it. It's up to you. But yeah. So I said, hey, I just want to let you know this particular person here passed away. Is this a home that you're still interested in, even though there was a homeowner that passed away? He said yes, he's okay with that. I said, okay, no problem. Again, some of this information, I can get some of it, I can't. But in that situation, I got that information that I looked at. And then we went from there. So let me see. All right. Because I don't want to bore y'all with all that deep dive and stuff. Because y'all gonna be like, what? This is not why we're here. We're here about short sales, Devon. All right. So first, let's talk about what is a short sale. So what is a short sale? A short sale is a real estate transaction where a homeowner in financial distress sells their property for less than the remaining balance on their mortgage with lender approval. Of course, it has to be approved by a lender. So you as a homeowner cannot go to a realtor and say, hey, I'm short selling my house. It has to be approved through the lender for you to do so. But typically it means that the home is worth less than what your current mortgage is. So you're underwater in a facet per se, and you're short selling it from that remaining mortgage balance. All right. And then we'll also talk about, because I'm going to show you guys all this in the system so you can see like the short sales in this. And then also we'll talk about what is a probate sale, because these are things that I'm seeing popping up in the Metro Atlanta area. Is it a huge explosion of it? No, right? However, there is things popping up. So I just wanted to talk about it. And then probate is the court supervised sale of a deceased person's real estate. So yes, whether you have a will or you don't have a will, it has to be probated. Wills have to be probated. Even if anything has been written down, wills do not go on record nowhere, right? So in order for them to go on record, they have to go to the court, in which they put it on record through probating it. So most times the best way to go about getting out of this probate situation, as we talked before with our probate attorney that was on here, Whitney, is to put it in a trust. Create an entity around it. Make sure you actually deed the property into the trust. You just cannot have a trust and say, put my house in the trust. It has to be deeded. The trust has to own it. The trust is an entity that has to own that house, right? So if you have real estate and you do not have a trust, or if there's no person on the deeds, depending on what state you're in, depending on how you took ownership on deed. In Georgia, we have tenants in common. We have joint ownership, joint tenants. Oh, Jesus. We have joint ownership, survival, and then we have joint ownership as well. I think it's 3 different ones in Georgia. Don't get me sorry if I messed it up, y'all. But yes, so all right, now let's go and see. Let's jump into the MLS. You guys let me know your thoughts, what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and I'll show you what I do in the MLS right now. I was being nosy at a different state, but I'll show you guys what I'll do. So what I do in my MLS. All right, so this is Alabama. Hopefully they don't flag me because the addresses, YouTube might flag me, but hopefully they don't. But this, like I said, we can go into other MLSs as well. I don't know if you guys can see this. Let me make it a little bit bigger. So it says Alabama, as you guys can see, Alabama. Of course, I'm in Georgia, but we're in Alabama. And I scroll down here And right here, listing conditions, it says short sale. So this is a short sale. This particular house in Alabama is currently a short sale house. All right. I don't know if the realtor wrote it in the. Sometimes some realtors will write it in the public remarks. Sometimes they'll write it in the private remarks. But so that is in Alabama. But let me go to where we're at, which is in Georgia, which is in Metro Atlanta, because that's where I'm at. But I'll show you guys how I access all the different MLSs. So as you can see here, these are some MLSs right here. So Gulf Coast, this is Alabama, East Alabama, this mid Georgia, so we can go mid of Georgia, greater Alabama, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Stella right here, this is Florida, California, MLS listings, I forget what this is. I gotta remember that one. Bridge, I think it's Bridge, Colorado, I think. North Texas, and then Valley, which is Jesus. This is a new one that just got added to our system. That's not, I forget. They just added it. Let me see. I'll click on it real quick so we can see. But they just added that to our system. And so what I do is I go down here. If you guys, I'll go down here. I'll go to special listing conditions. And then you see how it says right here, it says in foreclosure. So some of this you can pull up on Zillow as well. You can pull up auctions on Zillow. You can put up HUD-owned homes on Zillow, in foreclosure on Zillow. I think you can pull up, I don't know if you can pull up probate, real estate owned. So this is supposed to be real estate owned by the bank. However, I don't do this in my MLS because what I realize is that some realtors put real estate owned on investor owned properties. And I'm like, that's not real estate owned by the bank. So I don't know if they understand what that means, but that's what REO means. And then probate listings and short sales, and if it's in a trust, third party approval, different things like that. So we'll go short sale, and it looks like this particular MLS does not have any short sales, this particular one. All right, so needless to say, let me go to where we're at in Georgia. So first, multiple listing service, this is Georgia. We're going to do detached, which is single family home residence. So we'll look at that first, and then we can pop up, if you guys want to, we can pop up townhouses as well. And like what I like to do is active first, and then we can see which ones are pending, active under contract. We can do that afterwards. So we'll go short sales already clicked, click results. And then we'll see all the houses right now that are in some sort, well, they are in short sales. So we'll start here with this $1.99 million house in Alpharetta, Georgia. So this house is currently in a short sale. We'll scroll down here. We'll see listing condition, short sale. Most short sales are always being sold as is. So if you guys ever encounter a short sale, most of the times they're sold as is. They don't have the money to afford to fix it up or make any repairs. And then also it has to be, it has to be approved by the bank as well. And the bank they're not making any repairs to the house. So the biggest thing would probably try to go about and getting some concessions from the is really the bank, because the owner can't give you no concessions. Try to see what the bank is going to approve you for, the lender per se. And then, like I said, sometimes in these private notes, the realtor will say here, short sale, blah, blah, blah. But this realtor just didn't put it here because they just put it down here where they put short sale. And then what I do too, I'll be like, okay, let's see if it's a short sale. Let's see what they bought it for. So I like to go in history. Hopefully I don't show the people's names because it says the person's name on here sometimes. So they listed it at 2.2 million. 2026 is at 1.199. They listed it in 2025, 2.8, couldn't sell it. They listed it in 2025, 2.6, couldn't sell it. Let's see when they closed on it, because I'm scrolling slowly, because if I scroll too fast, I don't want to, tell the person's name who owns it and their lender, because it tells me on the back end. As you can see how many times they try to sell this house. They have been trying to sell this house since 2023, it looks like. Might be before that. 2023. Again, I'm just scrolling slow because if I go too fast. Okay, so they must have bought this. Somebody must have bought this house off market or something. Because right here in 2012, it was listed at 1.3 and it expired. Oh, okay. Well, okay. So what I can see it. I don't know if you guys can see it. So this is it looks like somebody bought it in a foreclosure. So I see it down here. It says foreclosure deed. Somebody bought foreclosure. And they bought it for 2.3. So it says they bought it in, as a foreclosure for 2.3. And so that's why it's a short sale now. But yep, so that's what I do. So let's see where else in regards to short sales. So short sales, they are popping up. Like I said, it's nothing new. They happen all the time. If you're local in your area, if you're trying to purchase something, and if you're trying to, because everybody's like, okay, in this market, this might be a market where if you are a buyer and you have, whether you have the money, whether you have anything saved up, this could be a good market for you to possibly buy in. Everybody's circumstances are different. So if you have the cash, it could possibly work out for you. I'm not saying that just go and start buying in this market, because you got to understand what's happening in this market. You got to make sure you put yourself in a good position. You don't want to buy too high because you don't want to possibly be underwater or doing a short sale. Again, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know where the market is going. We don't have a crystal ball, of course. However, just talk to your realtor, or a professional. Maybe have access to their MLS and say, hey, can you just show me some things? What's going on in your market? What's happening? Let's see right here. So this is, I'm gonna find something for you, Alex. I don't know if he's still here, because I know he was talking about Smyrna. Let's see if we can find a short sale in Smyrna. Is there any short sales in Smyrna? I don't see any. Covington, Dallas, Loganville, Ellenwood, Stone Mountain, East Point. Let's see. No, it doesn't look like there's any short sales in Smyrna. I was just looking for Smyrna because I know, Alex, we were talking about it earlier about Smyrna. All right, so we can go there, and then let's go. So when we look at short sales, again, this is our other partners that we have access to. Jersey, this is Mid-Atlantic. That's like Jersey, Pennsylvania. Northwest, that's Seattle. Central and South America. That's why I said I'm always in Costa Rica looking. We have Colorado, Detroit. We have Southeast Michigan. We have the greater Denver. We have access to Arizona, Virginia, Rhode Island, Florida, Kansas City, different things like that. So some people, some of your realtors, if you ask them, they might have access to these other MLS systems. Of course, doesn't mean they can sell in these areas unless they're licensed. They can't, but they can also refer you to a realtor partner in that area. So let's see. Let's go to, I don't know if you guys have any questions. Let me know. We just playing around in MLS so you guys can see what I do all the time. Every day, this is what I do. I just play around this MLS system. So you guys can see you getting the backhand of the MLS. So let's go to probate sales. Let's go to probate. Let me make sure I updated. Did it update to probate? I don't know if it did or not. I think so, yeah. So these should be probate sales, meaning that someone unfortunately passed away. So let's see. This should be probate. Okay, so they're saying this house is a probate listing. Yep, probate. Again, probates typically are sold as is as well. Again, ask for concession. It says property is in probate. Seller has required paperwork to complete the sale of the house. So they're going to court to get that leave the sale option to be able to sell, for the executor or the administrator to sell said property. Let's kind of take a glance at it real quick if you guys want to. And I know tonight is just checking stuff out. So you guys are probably like, why are we not talking about more in-depth real estate? I figured we would just kind of see what's going on. This is what's happening in the Metro Atlanta area in regards to short sales popping up, probates popping up. And this is what we're kind of seeing as, time is going on in this market. But again, this is typical in all markets. It just depends on how you're looking at things. Let's get out of Atlanta real quick. And let's go to another market. Let's go to Florida let's go to Florida, and let's go Florida. Let's do short sales in Florida. And again, this is not the whole Florida, as you guys probably don't know, is that one thing about the MLSs is that it's several MLSs in every state. Like our state of Georgia, it's about, I think it was like 149 MLSs, something like that. It's a lot of MLSs. So we don't have access, even in Georgia, we don't have access to every MLS. It's an association with the board that you're a part of. So if your board is a part of certain, and then you have like certain access to certain MLSs. So this is Florida. So these are short sales in Florida as well. So there's different parts of Florida. let's see. Let's go to Hernardo. Am I saying it right? So they're saying that this is a short sale. Let's go see if it says it. It says all offers are to be being written and pre-approved and offer proof of offer, blah blah. It says listing conditions is a short sale. So it says this is a short sale. So as you guys can see, they're here. So you just kind of peruse or browse the MLS, ask your realtor, can they look at the MLS for you guys and see what they're feeling, what you're looking for, right? I have some people that'll come and they'll ask me. I have several friends and people that reach out to me as well. They'll ask me about like foreclosures. I tell people most of the times with foreclosures, if they're already if they're already being auctioned off or they're already hitting the courthouse steps to be foreclosed, then me as a realtor, it doesn't make sense for me to help you buy it because most times we can't because you have to go to the courthouse step to buy it. The only way it can be bought with a realtor is if it goes back to the bank, is the REO reverts back to the bank. The bank typically will either have somebody listed and then sometimes they'll put it on MLS. Maybe it'll just go to the HUD website or whatever website they'll have it on. Or sometimes it's even on the bank acquisitions websites, and they'll have a realtor or a brokerage listed, and then you can finance it that way where you can get another realtor to do so to help you buy said properties. But most times if it's just being auctioned off in the first stage at the courthouse steps, you don't need a realtor. You just go down there and auction the property. What I do tell people though is just to make sure when you are looking at foreclosed properties to do your due diligence with the title searches and everything, because sometimes, and more in the state of Georgia too, since we are a buyer beware state, which is caveat emptor. Basically you want to make sure you're not buying the second lien and you're buying the primary, because there are some people who buy a second lien, and if you buy a second lien, sometimes you cannot obtain the property unless they default on that first lien. So just got to make sure you know what you're doing. So do those title searches, but you don't need us realtors for foreclosures. Well, in that instance, if it's at the courthouse steps or you're auctioning a foreclosure online. So, because I know some people reach out to me because I've done a couple videos on my channel where I take you to the auctions, to the foreclosure auctions. You can see like the foreclosures and all those things. And so people reach out to me like, "Oh, can you help me buy a foreclosure?" I'm like, I can't help you buy a foreclosure, but I can, can give you some insight, I guess I should say. All right, we're gonna jump into this real quick too. Sorry if I probably. We'll jump into this real quick. And this is basically saying, I'm pretty sure you guys are hearing this, that sellers outnumber buyers by the largest margin in over a decade. They said there were 46.3 more home sellers than buyers in the U.S., and that's the largest gap since 2013. It says many parts of the country will experience a very strong buyer's market this spring, but whether home buyers can afford to participate is an open question. It says a new report from Redfin estimates that U.S. housing market had nearly 630,000 more sellers than buyers in February. That equates to 46.3% more sellers than buyers, the largest gap since Redfin began tracking this data in 2013, and a big jump from the same time last year when the market had 29.8% more sellers than buyers. While February is usually a time when sellers are ahead of the curve getting ready for the spring home buying season, Red Chief Economist Daryl Fairweather. I actually started following her on Instagram. She's very interesting. I started following her on Instagram. I don't know. I don't. Of course, just like I'll say stuff, you don't have to agree with everything I say. I don't agree with everything some of these economists say, because again, it's very generalized, right? It's very nationwide overview. It's not local. It's not a local specific view. So with me being locally in my market and what I'm seeing in my Metro Atlanta market in certain counties, whether it be, Cobb, Fulton, DeKalb, Henry, Clayton, Gwinnett, what I'm seeing doesn't always have a similar story as what these economists are seeing from a very bird eye view, where they're taking the whole nation view of real estate. And so with that being said, I don't agree to a lot of aspects or conversations that they have, but I just follow them just to see what they're saying. Because this data is seasonally adjusted, the record gap tells us this isn't just a seasonal pattern. It reflects a deeper pullback in buyer demand driven by high cost and economic uncertainty. Fairweather said market has nearly 2 million sellers. The South has the strongest buyers market, particularly in Texas and in Florida, while the strongest sellers markets are in the Northeast, according to Redfin researchers. So the South, as we do know, we are seeing in the South, in the Sun Belt states, we are seeing a stronger buyers market because a lot of these areas, they had got overpopulated with a lot of people relocating to certain areas that were cheaper at the time. And the South was considered to be a cheaper place to buy. And so a lot of people flocked south, or maybe even during the pandemic, some of the southern states were open more than some of the other states, right? So people shifted. And with that being said, as the migration happened, the prices went up, especially if they came from states like New York, California, these high ticketed price states where people might have been able to sell their real estate at a very expensive cost and come down to our state and buy cash, like in Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, Florida. And so with that being the case, you kind of, the prices rose. And so now we're seeing that adjusted because most people who might have bought recently, life situations happen, circumstances happen, right? And they have to relocate again, whether they were a remote from home job and they have to go back to where they came from, whether an unfortunate situation happened in the family, different things occurring. Maybe they lost their job, unfortunately. And with that occurring, they had to adjust accordingly. And so now we're seeing people putting their houses back up on the market who might have bought a couple of years ago. The report estimates that 1.36 million home buyers across the country in February, down 2.4 compared to January. And as we all know, the reason for this is because most buyers cannot afford to buy. The home prices are still unaffordable to the general population in America. Those who can afford to buy are buying. Those that can enter into a market that makes sense to where they're at and what they can afford, they are still doing so, right? The ones who can't, they are not buying. So you have a limited pool of buyers, and then it gets even harder if you're in certain areas, certain locales, maybe in certain type of property structures, whether it be a condo, townhouses, HOAs factor in sometimes. So people are like, that the daggone HOA is now my mortgage. And this is something that my little sibling is involved in now, which I'm like, people do what they want to do, but they bought a house, sold a house, bought a condo cash, and now they have an HOA. She's okay with it because she says it feels like she don't have a mortgage, so the HOA is their mortgage. But I don't feel like your HOA should be your mortgage, right? And I've talked to different condo owners and townhouse owners who HOAs is $500 a month. Some condos, depending on where you're at in the Metro Atlanta area and the city of Atlanta, are $1,000 a month, $1,200 a month. So it's just becoming unbearable. So a lot of buyers now are sitting on the sideline because they feel like if I did try to make an effort to get into a space, especially most of them, because the condos are typically cheaper than the single family homes. And that's been like a step of what some people took, where they might have started buying a townhouse first or maybe a condo, then transitioning out of those type of structures into a single family house with a backyard and all those things, a yard to their own selves. Because of these HOAs, it's harder for people to transition out. And that's where you're actually seeing some of those accidental landlords come into effect too in the Metro Atlanta area, as these condos, some of these townhouses, I'm seeing a lot of more accidental landlords taking effect in those particular structures because they can't afford to get out of them. Nobody can afford to buy them. And the people that qualify for them that might, only get a pre-approval for about $200,000 or less, that could afford to get that condo, once they factor that HOA in, the insurance in, and the property taxes and everything, they're priced out. They can't afford to buy said property. And so that's where you're going to see that there's going to be more sellers now in certain areas and in certain type of structures now. Like I said, the condos, particularly in Metro Atlanta area, because people are priced out and they can't afford to get in even at the low level because of those other small nuances, which is an HOA or property taxes and different things like that. Number of sellers was 1.99 million, down from 0.4 month over month. And the number of recent listings have begun to climb, which could boost housing supply. These market conditions typically indicate that buyers have more leverage for price negotiations, but in recent years, many sellers, some of whom have ultra-low mortgage rates that they scored during the COVID-19 pandemic, have chosen to pull their homes off the market instead of negotiating with prospective buyers. Since sellers tend to also be buyers, the overall result is less sales activity. Says big changes in the recent years. The shift toward a buyer's market has begun a fairly quick one, as Redfin data indicates buyers outnumber sellers by more than 30% just 4 years ago. the pivot has occurred as a 30-year mortgage rates increased from around 3% to 7% in early 2025. So they're saying these are different things that are causing there to be less buyers than sellers. Yes, we know that the mortgage rates have climbed higher. However, I still feel like the properties are crazy, just ridiculously high. And if we want people to be able to buy homes like they did back in the 80s, in the early 90s, or the early 2000s, even like in their 20s, in order to hopefully, as they progress through their stages of having a job, climbing the corporate ladder or whatever ladder they decide to climb, and be able to say, hey, I can afford to buy a house because my salary is X amount of this, and the house is X amount of this, then we have to adjust the prices accordingly. Even the new construction homes as well being built, they're being built at a higher cost. And yes, we understand as far as the materials, as far as the permitting, as far as the zoning, all those things cost and everything. And when you start adding those costs up, those people also are trying to make a return as well. However, we have to figure out a way where we actually adjust prices accordingly so that future home buyers can buy a home. I am going to say this until the cows come home, and I don't know if they will. But everybody in the future will not be a millionaire. Everybody right now is not a millionaire. So if we continue to have prices go up and up and up, who will buy these homes if people buy them now? What future generation people will be able to afford these houses as time goes on? And I don't want to be that, that as you call them, with the negative Nancy, because I am in real estate, right? I do want to help people buy and sell homes. That's the purpose of me not only getting into it. Well, the purpose of me getting in real estate really is to educate people about real estate. I think it's so much stuff that these TV shows and online presence and what people talking about, I don't think they fully lay out the whole concept of real estate or the whole understanding of it. So that was the biggest purpose of me getting into it when I first got into it, was to educate people, make sure they know as much as I can give them. Of course, you as a buyer and a seller, you need to do your own due diligence. And most people do come to me that they already know, most of the stuff. And I say we collaborate, we work together, right? We're a team. And with that, but what I'm realizing that people that I've encountered just recently, more people, being more first-time home buyers, they don't know a lot about real estate. So I just like educating people and giving them as much knowledge as I can give them, and helping them out. So that was one of the reasons why I got into real estate. Well, the main reason, really, because I was doing, as you guys know, I was also helping and working with a friend and investing in real estate as well. So, all right. So for the last couple minutes, I'm just going to chat with you guys real quick, and then we'll jump off here. Alex says some condos limit the number of units that can be rented. There is a waiting list for you to rent. Yeah, that is true. Some condos limit the amount. They have caps on it, just like townhouses. They have rental caps with the HOAs. Some condo buildings as well, they might not be FHA approved because of maybe the HOA is not taking care of stuff accordingly. And with that being said, the finance people don't want to lend to structures that are falling apart. Nowadays, you have that HOA questionnaire that has to be answered. You have to make sure they have a master policy insurance because of the whole, seaside surf collapse in Florida with the condo building and these structures being older. So there are more things put in place. But yeah, they have rental caps that you can't rent. I was working with recently. I was working with a seller in the Mableton area, and in her particular subdivision, she was in a townhouse. There was a rental cap. There was a waiting list. She ended up putting herself on the list. She was number 23 on the list. She was, trying to sell her home. But if she couldn't, she wanted to possibly be able to rent it out. She couldn't rent it out because you do have those limits. So it's a lot of things I tell people you just want to be mindful of. What I've been realizing lately, and I've been, I'm not a fan of HOAs. I understand the purpose of HOAs, but I said at this point, I was like, most people, I'm like HOA. I was like, HOA properties might end up going down, and the properties that don't or that are not in HOAs actually might end up going up as the future goes on, as time goes on, because most people don't want to buy in HOAs no more because of the limitations, and because now with them costing so much money as far as inflation and adding things on, and some HOAs unfortunately are stealing money from people as well. With that being the case, a lot of people don't want to be in an HOA. And with that happening, that could possibly cause something to occur in the future where homes and HOAs value might go down while homes outside of HOAs values might go up, because which was funny because HOAs were created to maintain neighborhoods and make sure they're in great condition, make sure people are just not having trash all over the yard and different things like that. But now they've become so expensive to the average person trying to buy a house that they're like, I don't want to buy an HOA community. I don't want to be limited to what I can do to my house. I don't want to have to paint my door a certain color. I don't want to have to talk to the architectural person on an HOA board. I don't want to have to be in arguments with the president because my mailbox is to the left and not to the right. And I don't want to have limitations on what I can rent when it comes to my own house that I own. So because of this, a lot of people are saying, hey, I don't want to purchase in these particular areas, which can actually flip it. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying I could see that possibly occurring in the future. Like, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball again, but I'm like, because I'm noticing so many people that I'm talking to, they're like the last person that I helped purchase. He was like, I don't want to be in an HOA. So most people don't want to be in an HOA. So he purchased in Covington. Most people don't want to be in HOAs. So it just depends how you feel. Clark, you're saying the quiet parts out loud. The future reality for first-timers seems quite depressing. Well, for me, it is. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to depress nobody. Like I said, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I just want to be a realist. And the whole goal, again, one of the goals as far as outside of educating, like I told you guys, for real estate is to actually help people be able to own real estate, because it shouldn't. Before, it used to be a goal or a dream in which a United States, citizen could own real estate. And now I feel like we're at the sense that it might become a luxury where it's not obtainable no more, where our average person who works hard, who tries their best to create a future, they go to work every day, they do what they're supposed to do, to be able to one day say, I bought a house. It's hard to see that goal nowadays. And so, of course, you want to be fair to people too who bought real estate, who saw appreciation and equity. But at the same token, you want to make it make sense for future home buyers who want to be able to purchase, that want to one day be able to experience the same thing that somebody who currently owns experience, right? So that's the whole thing. Like I say, with people even buying real estate nowadays, is just be very mindful. Do as much research as you can do, be due diligent on your end outside of your realtor, or any professional that you're working with. And, like I said, like I always say on this channel, it's a collaboration, create a pros and cons list for yourself. Because I'm going to tell you my thoughts, just to tell you my thoughts. And then it's up to you that you're going to make the final decision, right? That take that informative information that you sought out yourself, that you also might have got from other people as well. And you make those final decisions based on how you want to live your life, whether it's buying or selling. However, it's just, we have to talk about this stuff. As you say, we have to speak this out loud so we can process it. If you don't say it out loud, sometimes you can't process it. If you don't write it down, sometimes you can't process it. So I'm like, just talk it out loud, process it. Of course, we don't want to make it where you can't get to that place to own a house, but we also need to sit down and say, okay, how do we make this realistic so you can do so, right? And that's just how it is. So, but needless to say, I appreciate everybody joining me here tonight on this Sunday night live. I hope I gave you guys some type of insight as far as the housing market changing. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the short sales happening. Again, you can reach out to your local real estate professional, ask them to do they can also, I know in our MLS system, we can actually put people on an email list that it can send all the short sales out. Again, it might not be none in your area. Like I said, I tried to check in Smyrna to see if there was any in the area, but excuse me, but I didn't see any. But you can have your local real estate professional. If there's anything occurring in your neighborhood, they can put you on a drip. It's going to show you everything that comes up short sale wise. So it might not be stuff that you say you are interested in or that you want, but if you say you wanted the realtor to do that, that's what they're going to do. All right. So you don't beat them up after, they put you in a little drip and you get in short sales or probate listings, 3 miles away or a different county away. You said you wanted to be on the newsletter drip for that, okay? But you can reach out to that professional to have them do that if that's something that you're interested in. Make smart decisions in this housing market if you are buying in this housing market. Yes, like my dad said, don't forget to hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends about the channel. Share this video if it makes sense. If it doesn't, I still appreciate you guys being here. If you're watching it after the live is over on a replay, hype the video, hit the like button so we can continue to go through the algorithm and help other people out when it comes to making real estate decisions, even if they're outside of the metro Atlanta area or the state of Georgia. I appreciate everybody being here. Have a wonderful Sunday night, and I will see you guys next Sunday. All right, bye-bye.